All right, welcome to this Thoughtful Readers Gathering with Catherine Ricketts and her book, The Mother Artist. And for those of you who are watching the recording, I'm going to share my screen in just a second to show you what we were looking at while we gathered in silence. And then we will begin with our liturgy for the evening. So I'm going to share my screen again, and then we'll move through our order. I'm gonna just wait for a second. Well, those of you, if you're watching this, you can pause it and then read it and then keep going so we can keep going. I would love, since it's a small group, most of these conversations have been super small groups. I'd love for those who are here to introduce yourselves and maybe share where you're located and one reason you wanted to be here tonight for this conversation. Amy, would you like to go first?
Sure. You want me just to say it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Say it. Since it's a small group, we don't need to put it in the chat. We can just chat.
Okay. Well, my name is Amy Alley, and I am a artist. I am a columnist. I'm a freelance yoga teacher, and I teach special education as my full-time day job. And of course, I'm also a mother to one son. This wonderful book. Finished it last week, I think, and immediately just reached out to Catherine and was just so I said I felt like it was the book that I needed. I need it now, but I definitely needed it when my son was younger. And I've recommended it to several artists who at home.
Okay, Amy, I'm not hearing you very well.
Children, it's still okay.
Can you turn off your video?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Can you turn off your video and try again? Maybe those last few sentences you just said. Can you repeat them with your video off? Oh, or can you hear me, Amy? Sorry, y'all. Okay. Oh, she must have lost connectivity. Okay, are you there, Amy?
Okay, I'm back, but no video.
Yeah, try without video.
Can y'all hear me?
We can hear you. I'd love for you to say those last few sentences again, if you can.
Okay. I had said I just I have shared it with a lot of artist mamas that I know that have littles, but I think it's relevant at every age of. I just think it's phenomenal. I'm excited to be here and be a part of this and share insight and I'm grateful to Catherine for giving voice to it because I definitely found it relatable. My favorite chapter was ambition, and I'm happy to talk about that later. But
Wonderful. Okay, I'm so glad you're here, and it's so lovely to hear how you've received this book. That's wonderful. Sarah, will you go next?
Hi, I'm Sarah. I live in Morgantown, West Virginia, and I was outside trimming hedges and forgot the time. So pardon my dress. What were we saying? I don't remember.
One reason you wanted to be here for this conversation.
Oh, yes. This book is delightful. I, of course, have known Kat for a while. And one thing I really love about this book in particular is the juxtaposition of Catherine's life examples and maybe examples of women from decades ago and examples of current mothers, and seeing all the different ways of being in the world is very inspiring for me as a parent of two young people, very tiny people. Yeah, and it's been a lovely companion.
I'm so
So
glad.
thank you for writing it.
All right, Kat, where are you? And what do you hope for tonight?
I'm near Philadelphia and so grateful to be with each of you. Thanks for coming. And my hope for tonight would just be to hear where the book hits home for readers.
Well, I think we'll have some opportunities to talk about that in the coming 50 or so minutes. One thing I like, well, and I'm Charlotte, I'm in Birmingham, Alabama, and I am thrilled to talk to Kat and both of you and hear more about the kind of definitely her reading and writing life, and just some of the questions I've asked that I ask a lot of people for these conversations. I'm super interested in Kat's responses. I think because of the mothering aspect, and I mean, having a new book come out as a mom and with two small kids and being pregnant, and like I just feel like it's going to be a very different conversation than I've had with everyone else. So I'm excited for that. So I'm going to share my screen again. Thanks to Amy and Sarah for introducing yourselves. I always like to breathe. I mean, we're always breathing, hopefully, but like take some deep breaths with a 6-count inhale and a 6-count exhale to transition from what we were doing before we gathered here, and to give our attention more to what we're doing now. And then, Kat, after you do a few breaths with 6-count inhale, 6-count exhale, or any breathing pattern you prefer, I want to invite you to read an invocation for us. And then we'll get started. And you read it when you're ready. I'll say that. Okay, so let's breathe and listen to Kat.
I lift the baby under the shoulders, placing 2 fingers behind his head because it still teeters like a porcelain face on a cloth doll. In my room, he nurses happily a while. When he's full, his cheeks are flushed, and we lie on the bed just looking at each other. I'm struck by how beautiful he is and how vulnerable. In motherhood, I spend hours and hours looking at my child, and this changes the way that I see. As I attend to the needs of the helpless person charged to my care, I become newly aware of the vulnerable people around me. Everyone was a baby once, utterly lovely, utterly needy. And in motherhood, I am coming to see strangers and those closest to me with a newly humanized gaze. If art has the power to shape societies, might art made through maternal vision enable us all to approach one another with tenderness?
That's perfect. Thank you, Kat. What a lovely way to begin. And Amy and Sarah, I wanted to let you know there will be plenty of time for y'all to ask questions. I'm going to start with some questions about reading and writing life, and then we'll move into questions about the mother artist. And when it's time for y'all to ask questions, you can ask about either category, any question. So one thing I love to start with is, how do writing and reading help you belong to yourself, others, and the world?
Mhm. Um, I I think of the quote from Anais Nin, we write to taste life twice. Um, and I feel like my writing life helps me to um, savor my life, especially because I write nonfiction. And maybe especially in motherhood when things can move really, really quickly. Um, I feel like I belong to my life more because I see it again on the page and I savor it on the page.
That's lovely. Like, okay, we can finish now. I'm just kidding. That's so great. Thank you, Kat. I kind of feel like I could talk about that one thing for an hour, but I will let it be what it is, and move on to another question about nourishment and how art nourishes us, which again, I feel like this question could be super interesting, coming from you instead of others. Not that their answers aren't interesting, but because of the way you see and the way you inhabit this world and engage with art. So what art, and by art, I mean all forms and genres of high art, low art, and all the in-between art. What art has nourished you over the past few months, and how, I'll add to that, like, how do you make sure you put yourself in the way of art?
Hmm. Um, I feel like I am always really nourished by memoir, and I often seek memoirs about topics that I'm experiencing. A lot of people read for escape. Like there are some moms that are like stay-at-home moms, and I recommend motherhood memoirs to them, and they're like, this is the last thing that I want to read right now. I want to read a fantasy about a completely different world. Um, but I'm not that way. I don't want to escape. I want to spend time with people that are going through what I'm going through. So I have found in the past few months, Christian Wyman's memoir. Well, it's like memoir poetry, um, art criticism, literary criticism. It's called Zero at the Bone. And I have found that to be a really great companion. He's an amazing example of somebody who I feel like he's a really wise guide. Like when I'm seeing the world through his eyes, I feel like I'm being guided with wisdom through the world. Um, and so I just love like being in his company. And then I'll also say, Charlotte and Sarah, you were both at the launch party for the Mother Artist, which happened a couple of weekends ago, and the art there was so nourishing to me. I had a dream that not a literal dream, but my hope was that the launch party could include visual art. And I partnered with this gallery in Philadelphia, and the gallerist, the curator of this gallery, um, just put together an amazing exhibition of all of these Philadelphia women artists who have kids. And I couldn't have dreamt of a cooler opening. So yeah, the work there by the women in my city. Um, and then a lot of them came out, and it was just so wonderful to be like with this tribe of women artists, who are at different stages of parenthood. That was really nourishing.
Yeah, that was super nourishing for me and Sarah. I'll speak for you too, Sarah. It was amazing. It was fantastic. I mean, for many reasons, but definitely a dreamy kind of book launch party, like the
It was such a
dreamiest,
dream. Yeah.
and just lovely. So it was such an honor to be there. And yes, super nourishing. Sarah, did you want to add any words while we're talking about this as you turn your camera off? Sorry.
Caught.
No, I agree.
Okay.
No, it was lovely. And actually, I got to talk to some of the women artists that were featured in your book, Kat, and trade stories, and it was just it was nice just hearing stories of how they were in it with toddlers just as I am. But then they also made this beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Sarah, even though it looked like you might have been trying to do something else. Okay, another question for the reading and writing life. What types of external and internal resistance have you experienced with your creative projects, and how have you responded?
It's so helpful to have that language of resistance, the word resistance, to think about the things that keep us from making the art that we want to make. I'm glad you brought that up. I think especially around this project, I had a book proposal that was rejected by like 20 different publishing houses before I came up with the proposal for this book. So I think as I was developing this project, I just had the sense of like, what if nobody cares? What if I put in a lot of work toward this and nobody cares? And I think a lot of artists feel that way because we make art before we know we have an audience for it. We know we have an editor or a buyer or whatever. And the way that I dealt with that resistance, I did receive an offer from a publishing house to publish this book, which is how we got this awesome bound thing. But I also received like 20 rejection letters for it. But they were all of the rejection letters like read like endorsements, but then they had a but in the middle of them. So they were like, this is like timely and compelling, and so many women in the arts will be interested in this book. And this writer has like a profound voice, and there are all of these really kind things that people said in their rejection letters. And, you know, then it was, but we just published something like this, or, but it doesn't really fit with our roster at this time or whatever. Anyway, I took all of the really nice things that people said about the book in their rejection letters, and I taped them to my wall, like above my storyboard for the book, just so that I could hear, like, people do care about this, even the ones that won't publish it, like they're interested, they want to buy it afterwards, after somebody else publishes it. So just kind of turning disappointment and rejection into something that could actually encourage me, was kind of a funny, I don't know, it was in some ways like a funny middle finger to the publishing industry. Like the whole back of my book could be filled with the nice things that people said in their rejection letters about this project. But it just helped me to kind of like not take too seriously the rejection that comes with so much of the artistic life.
Are those words still there on your board?
I took them down. They were on this wall right here, but
Okay. I love that. And there is something very special about a kind rejection.
oh yeah.
You
Because
know?
there's so much silence too. Like I mean, in trying to publish this book, I probably sent out 115 letters to agents before I even got a literary agent. And then there were all of the rejection letters about the first book and all the rejection letters about the second book. So yeah, it's just like, it's a lot of silence and a lot of rejection. So when you get a nice rejection letter, it's like, oh, someone actually took the time to consider this project.
And they have good words to say about it, even if it isn't a good fit. Yeah. I had a couple of rejections along the way that kept me going at a couple of different points. So
you can really learn from them about what people are looking for and the ways that they would like to see me grow as an author before investing in me, which is frustrating on the one hand, especially as a parent, because you're like, well, how am I supposed to get famous on the internet? when I have so many real human beings needing me right in front of me. But yeah, it can be informative.
Well, and I mean, we don't need to talk about publishing too much, but I will say, like, it's so frustrating because I saw someone, I want to say she had about 20,000 Instagram followers, which is what the minimum around of what people want, right? For the bigger publishers. And she was talking about how small her sales were and how disappointed she was, like, and I think it had done really poorly, this book. And I'm like, you can't just go off of internet fame or whatever, or platform. But I think your book would quell some of those concerns. I don't know if I used the right word, but like, I would be interested to know what some of those people who rejected you think after reading the book and seeing even how it's done so far. Like, and I don't know, it's hard to measure success, but it's such a beautiful book, and it's going to have a long life, you know?
Thanks, Charlotte.
And it's such a good first book. So I look forward to seeing what happens next and how things unfold.
Thanks.
Let's talk about depletion and nourishment. Which aspects of the writing life deplete you, and which aspects of the writing life nourish you?
Definitely the rejection and the silence can be depleting. The drive to be on social media, like that aspect of the writing life, can drain me, but it has also energized me. And you asked what nourishes me, and part of what I'm loving about the writing life right now is the community aspect of it. And some of that happens online, and much of that happens with personal friends. But I'm not in a, like, every day at my computer, or any day. I'm not writing at all right now. I wrote this book, and now I'm getting it out into the world, and I'm resting and attending to my family. And so I'm not enjoying or being nourished by, like, the daily rhythms of a creative practice the way that I have in the past, but I am really enjoying the community aspect of a writing life, like talking with friends about what we're reading, talking with friends about what they're working on. My friends coming to my launch party, and then beginning to hear from readers like Amy, just these messages of people who are finding that the book articulates something that's true for them. So just all the different layers of community in the writing life.
I love that. It does feel so solitary and like lonely sometimes, but it doesn't have to be as solitary as it can be. And I do love your point of like this portion of the writing life, like this publishing a book and like the responses and seeing how people receive it and the conversations you're having about what you're reading and that sort of thing, and what your friends are reading and writing. Like, that is so integral to the creative process and what it means to inhabit the writing life. So I love that you have like a broader view of it. And I think it really helps when writers have that larger view of what their writing life is and what it contains, because it starts to feel a lot less lonely.
Yeah. And just so much less pressure that, like, there can be a season where I don't type anything or even journal or do anything that's like productive toward a future publication. But it's still, yeah. Right now I feel like I am living an experience where I don't yet know what the story is. And yeah, so I don't think it's the right time for me to be writing right now, but I'm still a writer.
Yes, and the line you quoted from me before it made it into my next book,
Yes. Oh,
that all
sorry.
of life is the writing life. No, it's awesome. It's such a good reminder because you are being formed, ever since you finished that book and writing this book, and everything that's come after it is forming you to do the writing you're going to do when it's time to do more writing.
Yeah.
And all the things you're reading and every conversation you're having. And that idea takes so much pressure off of me when I'm in more of a lull, from a productivity standpoint. So, I don't remember what chapter that's in your book, but, I'll have to go look and read it when we're done, reread it.
Yeah, it might be in Balance where I talk about LaToya Hobbs, who like took some time off for a couple of years when her kids were really young and then returned.
Yes. Yes. Well, I think that's all. I would love to start talking about the book now. And we're going to start with a few readings. So the first reading I would love for you to do is a couple of paragraphs from the book that represent, at least in part, the mind, body, and soul space you're inhabiting right now. And if you'll let us know what page it's on, we can follow along.
Yeah.
We have the book.
This is from page 59. It's the second full paragraph. But as I enter motherhood, everything in me wants to turn in. Our apartment becomes a world unto itself. Its terrain is bare breasts, blood, and milk. Its sun rises and sets as often as the baby dozes. Sleep when the baby sleeps, they say. Baby time is incompatible with the working world, and I want to set my clock to his rhythms. I'm content to keep writing on the shelf until my child is sleeping well, which I expect will happen by the time I return to the museum in 3 months. In the earliest weeks, Austin and I alternate resting and waking so that one of us can observe the baby at all hours. He's perfectly healthy, but we're new to this and don't yet believe he'll keep breathing on his own, so we set up a night watch. At midnight, I nurse him and go to sleep. Austin keeps vigil over a bassinet in the living room. While our boy dozes, Austin reads to him Walt Whitman, the Quaker mystic Rufus Jones. Then he meditates. Studying the baby becomes a new form of contemplation, an attempt to be absolutely present. Austin studies the cadence of his breath, the way his face shifts from a smile to a whimper in sleep. What does he dream of, we wonder? When the baby cries, Austin brings him to my breast. Then Austin sleeps, and I cradle our boy and watch shows until sunrise. The Greeks call time like this kairos. Unlike chronos, or time metered out evenly, 60 seconds to the minute, 40 hours to the work week, kairos is a density of time that invites absolute focus. In ancient rhetoric, the term described the well-placed appeal, the perfect timing. In the New Testament, it's the word used for times when the sacred breaks into the mundane. In the earliest weeks, it's just the three of us here on this Kairos plane, hedged by visits from family and close friends, the people who put us at ease. I become oblivious to the world outside of this one, for I have absolute clarity about where I am supposed to be. Yeah, and I'll comment on that a little bit. I just listened to this interview with Christian Wyman, who I mentioned earlier, and he quotes Elizabeth Bowen, a novelist, who wrote, "To turn from everything to one face is to find oneself face to face with everything." I'll say that again. To turn from everything to one face is to find oneself face to face with everything. and you asked about like the mind, body, and soul space that I'm inhabiting right now. I am doing a different kind of caregiving right now for a sick family member. And there's such a similar Kairos focus in just focusing on that one face. I'm also in my 3rd trimester of my 3rd pregnancy and preparing myself to get into that headspace again for an infant, where you turn from everything, the busyness of the world, toward one face. And while that practice can in some ways be really limiting, if we inhabit it in a Kairos time instead of a Chronos time, so something that's very present in the moment rather than thinking about the future, it just opens up worlds.
Yes, and I love the point about the sacred breaking into the mundane.
Yeah.
And how time can be like a vehicle of the sacred, of soul meaning and soul presence. I tend to want to fight with time, but the last year or so I've been becoming friends with it, sort of, and trying to view it in ways of, of more of a companion and friend, and working with time instead of against time. And that excerpt that you just read is a perfect example of like how time helps me rest. Like how thinking this way about time feels more restful to me. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I find myself, I'm caring for this sick family member, and that comes with all kinds of fear about the future. And yet I sleep way better right now than I have in a long time, because in the past few years I've been very future oriented. Like, I want to put this book out. I need to get a new job with a bigger salary so that my family can move to a school district that I want my kids in. And like, yeah, just thinking a lot about what I want that I don't have. And now I'm in a place where I have the only thing that I want. Like with this family member, like I don't want to think about a future without them. And so I'm just very easily drawn into the present moment and sleeping like a baby, unless my kids wake me up.
I love that. One question I have about this ability to be present in the moment and like attentive to the present moment. How, and maybe there's words about this in the book, but like now on the back end and with this new reality that you're inhabiting, like how has mothering helped you be in time this way?
That is like a total paradox, because sometimes I feel fully present in the moment because my kids are either like delightful and I am just completely absorbed in who they are, or they're really annoying and they're like, Mom, 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 Mom. And I can't think about anything else. So I'm just thinking about them.
Mhm.
Other times I'm with them and I'm bored out of my mind, and I'm in a completely, I'm thinking about something else entirely. So both of those things are true. Sometimes motherhood really brings me deeply into the present moment, and sometimes it finds me like running out of my skin trying to be anywhere else but here.
Yeah, I get that. And it's normal.
Hmm.
Okay, let's do one more quote, and then I want to make sure there's time for Sarah and Amy to ask questions. I'm trying to decide which one I want. I think the please read up to 200 words or a few paragraphs that you wrote because you needed to read them.
Sure. Charlotte prompted me with all of these so that I prepared something, which is good. All right, this is from the last couple of pages. It's on page 187. Why persevere in making art? Because our communities need art made by those who can't take their eyes off of the vulnerable ones of this world. We need a visual culture, a literary culture, a culture of performance that wakes us up to the dignity of every person. Each chapter in this book details one or more virtues that, at her best, a mother brings to the creative life, gifts that she gives to her audience. An artist who's been transfigured in pregnancy gives us the body in all its strange beauty. An artist who has lost a child refuses to explain away tragedy and companions all who grieve. An artist who's been through the calamity of childbirth shows us women's vulnerability and strength. We need artists who have tamed their egos enough to take time to care for others, then revived their ambitions to be generous with their talents. We need artists who reimagine women's desire in all its complexity. We need artists who rightly balance self-emptying with self-possession, and artists who stand up for others' dignity, and artists who give themselves an interdependence to their communities. If art has the power to change minds, if art has the power to shift public opinion, if art has the power to shape new worlds, then imagine with me a world lit by this constellation of maternal virtues. It's luminous.
I love that. That's such a great quote, an excerpt from the book. Sarah or Amy, do y'all have any comments on that specific, on those words she just read? It's okay if you don't.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I cut my camera off. Tell me that page one more time. I lost it. That we
187.
were just on.
Yeah, at the bottom of
187. Okay, I had.
187.
So I like the way it started off and what you just read, because our communities need art made by those who can't take their eyes off the vulnerable ones of this world. I really felt like that's like a because I've had 20 years in education as well as being a mother. I've spent time with the vulnerable ones of the world in a lot of different ways. And I've often felt like they weren't valued because they weren't earning, they weren't already contributing to society. So in some ways, children weren't as valued. I know that sounds dismal, but as working adults would be valued. And so when I taught art, I really tried to advocate for their art because I felt like, it wasn't valued. People wouldn't come to see student work at an exhibition the way they would an established artist. And so it just little things like that just touched me because of my own personal experience, in the arts and as a mother, and just trying to help people by be seen. I also liked the line about who's been transfigured in pregnancy gives us the body in all its strange beauty. And I'm sure you all can relate to this. Everything about me changed in my journey to motherhood, including pregnancy and through every stage of it. And so I just thought that was really powerful.
Thank you, Amy.
Can I say something? I struggled before I had kids with the idea that I saw motherhood as something that would take away from my creative life. And that seemed to be backed up by most people, that it would take time away. I wouldn't get to do the things that were important to me, and I would just have to learn to sacrifice. And Um, ultimately, I decided that I still wanted to have children. But what you just read, Kat, and in this book as a whole, it gives the just the inverse of that in a way that's very optimistic and hopeful, and sees motherhood as a gift that that we can give others in our creative work. And it's a viewpoint that I've needed to read about for a really long time. And so I'm very thankful that you wrote this book. And just that paragraph in particular just kind of summarizes for me the book. And it's a thing I'll read over and over again.
I'm so glad to hear that. So much of the writing about motherhood is in I don't know, contemporary American literature feels really dark.
Yeah.
And part of me like really celebrates that. Like it's great that though commercialism depicts motherhood as like really soft and adorable and cozy. It's good that there are these, I don't know, that women are able to say, I'm exhausted all the time and my mental health is really suffering, and my body got wrecked and doctors didn't take care of me. And it's important that there are spaces for women to express those things. On the other hand, I kind of wonder, like, do writers feel like they need to go dark in order to earn the space for motherhood on the page in a male dominated and largely cynical literary environment? And so I really wanted to write a book that didn't shy away from like the hard parts of motherhood, like the exasperation and the physical difficulties of it, but that also really celebrated motherhood. And I'm so glad to hear you use the word hopeful, Sarah. I wanted this to be like a really hopeful book. So I'm so glad that that came through.
Amy, if you have any other questions for Kat, I'd love for you to type them in the chat because your audio is also just a little off. I think we've been able to hear most of what you're saying, but it would help if you want to add them to the chat. And then while you're adding those to the chat, Amy, Sarah, do you have a question you want to ask? It's okay, no apologies necessary. Technology is hard sometimes.
Well, and I just hear my children screaming in the background. So
do you have any questions to ask, Sarah? It's okay if you don't. I have more I can ask.
no.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna ask another one while we wait and see if Amy has one or two. Since you mentioned one thing you hope for this. Okay. Okay, Amy says that she seconds what Sarah said, and struggled with the idea of becoming a mother and balancing a creative life. Yeah, it's kind of sad that this book wasn't out sooner, you know, for those of us with older kids on the other side of it, but it is so good to know that others are going to receive good things from it.
Yeah, Amy,
And I love how Amy said that she was already giving it away to younger moms with younger kids.
exactly. I was just going to bring that up too. Like, Amy, you, from what you shared with me in our Instagram messaging conversation, like you persisted, you fought through the narrative that it was going to ruin your creative life, and you kept working. And now you're in this place where it sounds like you have some younger, new moms in your life, and you are like a mentor, I don't know, in some sort of mentor role to them, showing them that this is possible, that it can be a beautiful life. That's really important.
Well, and it's such an amazing kind of what we were talking about earlier about it, about the literary community and our artistic community around us. Like this is such a beautiful way to enter into someone's life, and or a way to speak into and care for people who are making art. And I love that Amy's already doing that. Okay, she says she also wanted to comment on the line on page 166. Experimentation can feel frivolous as the nap time clock ticks. It is possible and definitely can be a beautiful life. It has totally shaped my son into who he is today to have been raised in the arts. Okay, so that was back to
Yeah. And that's so helpful for people at my stage to hear, like how we're not detracting from our children's lives by working a full-time job and then finding little pockets of time outside of that also to be away from them working on our unpaid creative labors. But we're actually bringing them into a rich, beautiful community of arts events and all that kind of stuff. Amy says it's adding to it and teaching them the definition of passion, I believe. Yeah.
yes. Kat, do you have any words on the line from 166 on about experimentation can feel frivolous as the nap time clock ticks?
Yeah, I mean, kind of related to what I just said, like time feels like such a valuable resource in parenthood, especially if you hold another paid job. So if you're just sneaking in some work on a Saturday afternoon for the 2 hours that your toddler is sleeping, you want that time to count. And maybe not everybody, there may be artists who are like just really, really comfortable with play, experimentation and play, and they're not always driven toward connecting with audiences, finding a gallery that will show the work, or a patron to buy the work, or an editor to publish the work. But it does feel good if you're working on something and you know that it's someday going to make it out into the world and count for something. So that's what I was thinking when I wrote the line, experimentation can feel frivolous as the nap time clock ticks.
I kind of,
and I always find
already
it,
have like go ahead, Sarah.
I was gonna say, I always find it just full of pressure. Like, great, I have 90 minutes. This has to really, really, really matter. So I feel the same way.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say, because I don't know if I've ever, like, I started writing later in life. And one reason, I mean, I always loved writing, I always enjoyed it. I didn't know it was something I could do like with more seriousness and intentionality. Until my daughter started telling stories when she was very young. So motherhood kind of gave me my voice and my desire to write. And I'm always interested in how, like, so my relationship with mothering and creativity is kind of different. Like, I didn't think about some of the things y'all thought about before you had kids because I wasn't writing yet. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out. I'm really grateful that it happened the way it did. And it's, Amy, kind of like what you were saying, like I honored my children. I was taught to honor and value their unique voice and their gifts that they have to give from like birth on, you know. And I think it was in that honoring of her and who she was that made me see more of who I was. So, and Kat, your book very much kind of put words around my experiences as a writer, like a late writer with kids. So thank you. Well, for our benediction, I think, Kat, I just want to ask you to do the other reading that I asked you to prepare for,
Yeah.
to close us out. Well, before you do that, Amy or Sarah, do y'all have any questions or comments before we close out? And Kat, do you have anything else to say or comment on?
This is a small group, but like such diverse experiences represented in the group in terms of how our writing lives and our artistic lives, like the timeline of each, where we are now, how those two things dovetailed throughout. And I love that. There are just so many ways to be a mom and so many ways to be an artist. So,
Yeah.
thanks for
And
sharing.
Amy, I'm glad you found us and that you read Kat's book and reached out to her and found your way here. It's
Mhm.
lovely.
Yeah, Amy, how did you hear about the book? Social media.
Yay! It works sometimes.
It matters. Yeah, really glad to hear that.
Wonderful.
Good,
Appeared on her feed and she was captivated.
good.
Tell those publishers that.
No,
That's your next book proposal.
doing it. Yeah.
All right, let me read this question before, oh gosh. Where did it go? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Do you have it, Kat? The one about,
Yeah.
the one you want people read,
Yeah.
a paragraph that you want the people you love to read again and again. Is that what it is?
The one that I wish people I love would read and reread regularly.
Yeah, that's a great way to close out.
This is from page 45. And maybe this is a benediction for myself because I'm about to, in a couple of months, have another baby. So go through labor and delivery again. This is from the labor chapter. Those who haven't witnessed childbirth misunderstand what a mother is capable of. Some are ignorant of the new mother's fragility, expecting them to bounce back quickly, back to work, back to the gym. Others are ignorant of women's power, treating postpartum mothers like infants themselves. But my mom and husband will neither ignore my fragility nor patronize my abilities, for they have witnessed what I have done, the awesome work that wounded me. There is no birth story that does not sound from the string taught between weakness and strength. Whether a woman has agency or feels dragged through a medical labyrinth, it is by the vigor of her womb and blood that our world receives her child. She has formed this impeccable body. From her center comes a singular spirit that cries out with its first breath, a secret beginning to be uttered. What mystery, what strength. And in the woman whose child never takes a breath, I see otherworldly power, love that transcends realms. To have someone see the wholeness of who we become in the process of childbirth, our frailty and our strength, is extremely dignifying. Being seen can nurse mothers to recover not just our health, but a sense of ourselves transfigured, more capable than we ever knew ourselves to be. So that is true not just of those who have just given birth, but of every mother. In motherhood, we have been transfigured into someone more capable than we ever knew ourselves to be.
Thank you, Kat. I love that. Sorry, I'm having a family member through my very safe space here. My kids are home for the summer. So, well, one of them is home now for the summer. Another one is coming home in a couple weeks. We are figuring out how to navigate them being home in space. But many thanks to everyone here. And Kat, I love that you closed with that. And it is such a lovely few paragraphs to read and reread as we, you know, hold you and your new baby and your family in our prayers and hearts. So thank you for that. And again, thanks to both of you for being here, and thanks to anyone watching the recording online. If you have not bought The Mother Artist, please do so. When I send, yeah, Sarah will hold it up for us. You can buy it wherever books are sold.
Buy it from Charlotte.
And you can buy it from me. I have several copies. I've already started. I'm like Amy, I'm already giving them away to people. I'm like, this is just going to be my little gift pile if anyone buys them from me. It's such a great book to give away. Because you know you're giving someone something good, you know, like I hesitate to give books away sometimes because I worry, you know, are they going to like it or whatever? But this one, if it's a mom and she's making art, you know, it'll be a great fit. So thanks for taking that stress away from me from a gift giving standpoint.
Happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Yes. Okay. Well, I hope you all have a lovely evening, and yeah, thanks for being here. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.